Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spoke to the faithful today. And some people on this show say we didn't learn anything at all. I disagree. I'll let you hear it. You can decide for yourself. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera. That man is Levin Black. We are part of the Pro Football Insiders. Levin, Kyle, and John Shanahan held the post-mortem of 2025.
Who? You said Kyle and John Shanahan. Who?
Same difference. They're basically the same person anyway.
I think you need to work on your mystery, by the way, because you said some people think that it was a nothing burger. I disagree. Yeah, that some people was a big mystery now on a two-person show.
Well, yeah, it's only a two-person show. What do you think that people aren't going to figure it out?
Yeah, that's why you did say Levin from the start if you're going to immediately reveal that you disagree.
Stop breaking my stones. I'm very upset. I didn't like anything we heard from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch from today's press conference. It is a cycle with me that I go through. Kyle Shanahan is such a good coach. He's a top 3 coach in the NFL. He is awesome. He did maybe his best job ever this year. He was great. And then we get to the offseason and he makes me want to rip my hair out of my head, which, let me tell you, doesn't need any help coming out. So it's crazy that we go through this every offseason. I was furious listening to the press conference today. We have a bunch of press conference clips, but before we get to those, Levin, I just want to hear your sort of overarching takeaway from the 20 minutes or so that Lynch and Shanahan spoke.
20 minutes was a full hour.
Was it?
Yeah. Because I watched it, I started watching it right after it finished, and it was a full hour long video. It was like an hour and 4 minutes, but the first 3 minutes was them waiting. Right, for them to come on camera. But I thought that this was probably the weirdest one they've had, because I feel like it's one where they just didn't say anything. Usually there's some good stuff that comes out of this press conference. Some things that you really go, oh, now that's interesting. 2 years ago, it was the head scratch of John Lynch when talking about Aiyuk and not wanting to sing his praises about whether or not they were going to sign him, cluing in that maybe they didn't want to. But this one was just we're not going to say anything. Oh, we're going to keep that under wraps. We're not going to say what we want. Of course, we're going to look into everything. We look into trades, including ones about John and Kyle, myself. It was just them every single time saying, yeah, maybe, possibly, could have, maybe it happens. Who knows?
It was infuriating to me. And we're going to start right at the top, because as it should have been, the very first question to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan was about the injuries that the 49ers have had. And what are you going to do to prevent and change some of this injury situation? Here's how that went.
Anything being considered, or will anything be done this offseason to make changes organizationally when it comes to those areas, including injury prevention?
Yeah, so Matt, we're always, looking into trends, data, everything we do. Our health and performance of our players is at the utmost priority each and every year. This year it was tough, and it took a toll on our team, and we'll continue to look. Now, having said that, we've spent a lot of time and effort in recruiting really quality people, and I think being at the forefront of injury prevention, and I think this year, probably because the star players that went down, there was a lot of attention given on that. The fact of the matter is injuries are a part of this game, and so what we strive to do is never to eliminate injuries, but to mitigate injuries. And I think we have a lot of good processes. We'll challenge them all, and that has, that process has begun. It never, frankly, stopped. But yes, we'll look at everything and we'll examine everything.
I don't ever want to hear this team talk about injuries ever again. If that is your attitude is injuries are a part of the game, then shut up about them. Okay. Diamondor Lenore, I don't want to hear you talking afterwards. Well, if we had all our guys, this game would be a landslide. Shut up. Kyle Shanahan, never mention injuries again. Never mention them again. That's your answer. We've got people at the forefront of injury prevention. What are you talking about? You've been in the top 10 most injured teams every year of the coaching regime except one. What are you talking about? We're immediately defending his people, the best people in the game. What? And by the way, where are the follow-up questions? John, are you out of your mind? That simply hasn't been the case, John. John, you guys are way more injured than everyone else in the league, John. You can't name one single thing that you're going to change, one difference. You're not going to change anybody on the staff. You're not going to do anything. Oh, we're looking into it. That's a BS answer. That's nothing. They think it's okay. They think they're victims of circumstance. They think for the past 10 years, they've just been unlucky. What the hell? How does that not make you furious?
Because they didn't say anything. They didn't say they weren't going to make changes. They said, we'll look into it. They're bypassed every single question in this press conference. The one follow-up they had about it was the longest-winded. I don't know who that was. That Eric Branch? I was trying to figure out who it was. But it was the longest-winded thing about the substation where the guy kept trying to make a point of, I don't really believe it, but I have to ask. But rather than just saying that, he decided to spend literally 2 minutes getting the damn question out about the substation. And the answer was, we don't know. We're going to look into studies to see if there's actually any study about it. But, I mean, like I said, I've had training on that exact thing because we have a substation in my plant that I would bet is higher, does more power than that substation, because to run a gas plant, it takes a lot of power. But there's nothing there. But I would have liked to see a follow-up of, if you're not going to change personnel in terms of who runs the training, and you're saying that that's not the reason for this, then do you have to take a long look in the mirror and recognize that it must be the type of players that you're willing to bring onto this team become injury prone? And if it's not that, then there's only one other answer, and it's the guy next to you's practice habits. It has to be one of those three. That's what I would like to see. Them say, all these injuries, it has gone on long enough and been consistent enough to be something that's happening with the team. It's not just bad luck because it's been too long with too many different players coming in with no injury histories and then getting an injury history where they can never stay healthy. Do you believe it's the training staff and you're going to overhaul it? Do you believe it's the players that you're bringing in, and thus you got to look at the front office and maybe change your analysis? Or do you believe it's the practice habits? Which one of those three do you think is most likely? Nobody has put it in that light, but that's the truth. It has to be one of those three at this point.
I agree with you. But when he says, oh, we're going to look into it, when your answer on how do you change, are you going to change anything when it comes to health and injury prevention for your players, when that answer is the same as the answer of the conspiracy substation, oh, we'll look into it, that means you're not looking into it.
It's a bad question. You're asking an open-ended question and allowing them an out. If you give what I just said, that it has to be one of those three at this point, or do you believe that somehow for a decade straight, it's just bad luck? Which one is it? Now he has to answer the question. Once again, it's the 49ers media not knowing how to ask and phrase a fucking question. Well, if they knew how to ask a question that actually forced people to answer, phrasing with your questions is, to me, the second biggest skill you need to have as a journalist next to actually writing. Because if you don't phrase them correctly, you will never get a good answer, because you give them outs like this where they can just say, we'll look into it. But you have to ask in a way that they don't have that out. You have to think it through. You can't just go in, and I will say this. I think it's abundantly clear when they actually have the mics good enough to where you can hear the question, the 49ers media do not script their damn questions. When I was a journalist, I had my questions written in the perfect words. It was same as when I write an article. I would write them beforehand so that I knew exactly how to phrase this so that they don't have an out. But every single time they ask a question, I don't want to use the term because it's a sexist term. So sorry, I almost said it. But they play around with the question and they stumble around and they're just mumbling words out until they finally get to the question. And that's a clear sign of you wanted to ask about a topic, but you never actually had the freaking thoughts to go through the question in your head and have it phrased in concise, ready to go.
Yeah, the substation question. Eric, first of all, Eric Branch is the single worst question asker.
I don't know if it was him. It's hard.
I
can recognize most of them. I've never, because he doesn't do on camera stuff.
It was
so
him.
It's hard to get his voice perfect.
It's terrible. You got to know what you're going to say before you open your mouth. But just the fact that they answered that question with the exact same phrasing of the way they answered the "what are you going to change about injuries" question, it's infuriating to me. This team is going to be just as hurt next year. Nothing is going to change. It's going to be just as hurt. Period. Like, they're not looking into it. They're not trying to change anything. They're not trying to get better in this area. They're not. They think it's good. They think it's all been bad luck.
The difference here is that we both disagree. It's a crap answer. I blame the media for allowing them to have that answer, because if you ask the question the way they asked it, that's going to be the answer from 99 out of 100 coaches. Coaches and GMs will avoid a question, especially when it comes to whether or not they're going to be firing and replacing people, every single time they possibly can. The only time that they won't is if they're the Buffalo Bills owner. That's the only person who's not.
That was wild. I've never seen an owner literally be like, yeah, we ain't this guy.
Yeah, have you seen the videos that are being brought back up where Bean is taking credit for drafting Keon Coleman and saying that I had him circled the night before and we knew unless something crazy happened, that was the guy we were taking? Like, yeah. Anyways, not to go to Buffalo, but they're going to bypass that question. I don't blame them for bypassing the question. But it's up to the media. I'm angry at the media for how they asked the question. You're more angry at the fact that they just avoided the question. But to me, that's what you should expect.
But it's both. I'm mad at both. And by the way, there wasn't a single follow-up question. Now, it's very possible the Niners took the mic away from people after one question and didn't allow it.
They did. They did. You could tell because at the end of the press conference, there's 3 different instances in the second half of the press conference where the reporter asked 2 questions at the same time because they knew they weren't going to get a chance.
That is complete garbage. It is a weak move by the 49ers. Like, not that the 49ers media would ask any follow-ups, by the way. But all right, let's get to some other things. And most of these are going to make me just as mad, unfortunately. I thought there was a very good question that came from Matt Mayoko, and this answer also did not make me happy. Here we go.
John, how much will your cash spending be impacted by the dollars that came free, in essence, when you voided Brandon Aiyuk's guarantees for the future? Does that have an impact on the models that you guys have put together and changing how you approach this offseason?
Yeah, of course it does, but those things are complicated. With the cash that comes, there comes a cap acceleration and things of that nature. But yes, it obviously does affect things. Yeah.
We can't talk about cash spending. Oh, we can't talk about the owner's cash spending. Oh, physically waving away the question. That's a great question from Mayoko. Because what the 49ers did last year, the reason they cut all those guys and didn't sign Greenlaw and all that stuff was not for the salary cap. That was always a lie. It was BS. They did it to save Jed York cash. They did it to save the cash spending. The cap doesn't matter. All they did with the cap was take the hits that were going to be spread out over multiple years and accelerate them into this year. That's the only thing that changed with the salary cap. They cut all those guys to save Jed York cash. So I love that question from Mayoko. It's a great question. And the way John Lynch just, he was literally waving away the question. Oh, we can't talk about that. Well, it does, but it's complicated. No, it's not complicated, John. It's a very simple question. But thank you, Matt Mayoko, for asking it.
So let's talk about Brandon Aiyuk, because I did a lot of digging into the CBA today in terms of how is an option bonus considered compared to a signing bonus and what the team could potentially come for.
Mm-hmm.
And if the team wanted to, they have a very good argument to be able to cut Brandon Aiyuk and owe him nothing and have a 0 dead cap hit. They already voided the guarantee, so they can cut him and not owe him anything. But they can go for the signing bonus because they can claim he was in breach of the contract by not showing up, not answering phone calls. Very easy argument to make. If they do that, they can get back the signing bonus. He would have to pay it back. But also, if they release him before the option bonus this offseason is due, then that option bonus is, I got it written down, 24.935. So they wouldn't owe him that money. And part of his salary and dead cap hits is these option bonuses because you can prorate an option bonus over 5 years. Well, they already paid him the first option bonus. However, it was prior to this past season. So if they go to he was in breach of the contract and didn't, this season is a problem, we should get the signing bonus back. That option bonus, the CBA is written that an option bonus in terms of the actual legal sense of it is considered the same as a signing bonus by the NFL. So they could go for all of the money if they chose to make this. And I mean, Jed York would get $30-40 million back from Brandon Aiyuk that's been paid to him. Like, they could literally go and say Brandon Aiyuk, all that he gets is a prorated 1 year amount of his signing bonus and the salary from his first year, which was a league minimum. Brandon Aiyuk, if they chose to, could end up walking away where 2 years later he made like $7 million total.
Well, we talked about that when it happened, about how if they wanted to, they could. They talked a little more about Aiyuk today, basically saying like he left them on red, basically. Like,
yeah,
he stopped responding to calls, stopped responding to texts. I don't think they're going to go that route because I think he would put up more of a fight, and I think they just want to be done. But I think they have a case to make if they wanted to make it. We'll see.
So here's the problem. If they don't make that case and they cut him before this $25 million in cash is due to him, which I would think Jed York's saying, I'm not paying that guy $25 more million, because if they do a post June 1st cut and use that designation, they can take the cap hit all the way down to $8 million this following year by having it stretched out over the next few years instead of, as it sits, $29 million. So it's a pretty big difference. But the problem is that comes with Jed York paying $25 million cash to Brandon Aiyuk, which he's definitely not going to do. So now the Niners are stuck in a situation of, if they cut him and don't do what's best for the salary cap, they owe him $25 million, or they don't do what's best for the salary cap and they have a massive dead cap hit, at which point they're incentivized to go after the signing bonus stuff and get it dropped.
It's a crazy situation that it has gotten to this point, but this is where we are with Brandon Aiyuk. John Lynch was asked, are you going to cut him? Are you going to trade him? He said the transaction will happen in due time. I'm sure it'll be that due time.
I'm guessing there are negotiations happening in the background where they're telling Aiyuk, if you pay us this amount back, we'll let you keep that. If you don't, we're coming for it all.
Right. We're going to be done with this, whatever. Yeah, it's a sad end of a sorry episode, as we've already discussed many times. We'll see what ultimately happens there. Just crazy. And now the 49ers need wide receiver help. Grant Cohn said that the rumor that he heard was that they want to trade for Jordan Addison. I'm staunchly against that. The dude's been arrested 3 times since he's been in the league, and he just got to the league in 2024. Hard pass on that. Niners have enough trouble keeping guys on the field who just deal with injury. They don't need to add off the field issues into the locker room. So as much as
I don't want any part of people with a lengthy criminal history. If somebody has one DUI from 5 years prior, maybe. But I mean, that's about how far it's got to be removed. Domestic violence? No way.
No, I don't think he has any domestic violence.
I know. I'm just saying, like, domestic violence, I don't care how long ago it was. I don't want any part of you being on the team. Certainly not in a trade. But multiple run-ins with the law, not interested. That's all I was saying, is if it's one thing years ago where you've been good since, okay, maybe I can forgive it. But it's all about risk reward. And It's too big of a risk if somebody's constantly getting injured or arrested.
Yeah, I'm not. There are other places to go for wide receiver help. Not that desperate. Sorry. All right. Should we get to some more things that made me want to rip my hair out? How about we get to, okay, this is the frustrating part. We all know the 49ers need a new defensive coordinator, right? Robert Saleh, congratulations. You're going to Tennessee. Haven't heard much about the 49ers defensive coordinator search. Kyle Shanahan was asked who the most likely internal candidate is and if they were going to cast a wide net in their search for a new coordinator. Here's what he said.
I'm going to say it's a real wide net, but I mean, Gus is the obvious one to everyone, and it is to us too. Gus would be the main internal candidate. We feel very fortunate to get Gus and great about that. But also we are going to go through the whole process. There's requirements we have to do and stuff that we want to do also. So hopefully we can get it settled sooner than later, but I see it working throughout this next week on it.
He's not going to cast a wide net, Levin, because why would they? They want to go with Gus Bradley, so that's who they're going to go with.
They know there are extremely experienced, great track record defensive coordinators that they actually have connections to already as well available. So you don't need a wide net. There's 3 to 5 guys that they should be interviewing, and they're all experienced defensive coordinators.
They are hiring Gus Bradley. That's what this team does. When is the last time this team had a truly open competition, right? They said it was going to be an open competition between Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. They traded Trey Lance before the preseason ended. They said they were going to have a kicking competition. Jake Moody lost the kicking competition, and then they cut the other guy because they wanted to stick with Jake Moody. This is what they do. They don't actually have open competitions. They want to go with Gus Bradley because he's comfortable, because he's in the building, and everybody likes him, and he tells good stories. And 10 years ago, he ran a great defensive scheme. They're going with Gus Bradley. This is a huge mistake. Not interviewing people and just going with Gus and doing these sham interviews so you can comply with the Rooney Rule. It is lazy. It is short-sighted. It is close-minded. This is terrible process by the 49ers. But this is what they're going to do. This is what they've always done at defensive coordinator.
He did say that he's sure Saleh is going to want to raid some of the coaches, and they'll figure that out. I'm hoping Gus is one of them, because I do think Gus Bradley, as the defensive coordinator for a defensive head coach, isn't that bad. Because him and Saleh run very similar systems, he can help. But yeah, I'm going to bring one of my hot takes early. If they go with Gus Bradley, Robert Saleh will be the head coach of the Tennessee Titans longer than Kyle Shanahan is head coach of the San Francisco 49ers. It will cost him his job because they're not going to fire him after 1 year. They're not going for 6 years. It doesn't matter how bad it is. He's already liked, so it's not a Steve Wilkes situation. But, I've seen other people put it out there like what his recent defensive rankings are. And
they're terrible.
For points per game, they're 24th, then 28th, then 28th, then 26th with the Raiders in the 1 year that he was with the Raiders. Those are his last 4 years, but it's worse than that. If you go back to the last 8 years that he's been a defensive coordinator, which, by the way, is the entire time that he's been a defensive coordinator, other than his original run with the Seahawks more than a decade ago, he's been worse every year that it's going on. He was back in 2017. He became the defensive coordinator of the Chargers for the first year. And they were good that first year. They were 3rd in points. The next year, they were 8th. The next year, they were 14th. The next year, they were 23rd, and the whole staff got fired. Then you have that run that you've heard about, 26th, 28th, 28th, 24th. So it's not just the last 4 or 5 years. It's the last 8 years that he's been a defensive coordinator. It's been clear that the game has passed him by. He may have a ton of knowledge. I don't doubt that. I am sure he is great in his current role, but that's the role he should be, because he does not have and has not shown the ability to adjust, and the game has passed him by.
I completely agree with you, and nobody ever thinks that the game has passed them by, but it has. Justice Mosqueda posted this, and I loved it because it really frames it. Gus Bradley's defenses by passer rating against. In 2021, they were 25th. Then they were 30th. Then they were 13th. Okay. Then they were 23rd. and they were 26th. And as Justice writes, he just needs a sixth chance to make his defense in his image. This time he'll get it right, I swear. Like, what has he done to earn this spot, especially basically to be handed the job? What has he done? Robert Saleh brought him here, and Robert Saleh, they were so desperate to get Robert Saleh back. They were like, yeah, sure, we'll take us, whatever you need, Robert. Just please come back. And even that is, did they interview that many other people when they were hiring Robert Saleh? No, they went with comfort over competence, as Dieter Kurtenbach wrote. And that's what they're doing in this defensive coordinator search. It's ridiculous. It's setting them up for bad defenses.
Oh, by the way, in that same span, he has not been above the middle mark of the league in rushing yards allowed either. He has been 18th or worse for 6 straight years as a defensive coordinator. So, look, he's a name. And like I said, I think maybe they think more of him than he is, because in his current role, his knowledge can shine. But when it comes to play calling, when it comes to having full control, it's just an outdated system that he never adjusted. That's what it is. He never was able to adjust it. The only time that he's been really good as a defensive coordinator out of 12 years was when he had what's probably going to end up being 3 or 4 Hall of Famers on a defense, because his first 2 years in Seattle weren't very good.
Right.
It was once they got a bunch of dominant players that suddenly it took off, and he had 2 really good years that then got him a head coaching job.
And that's the thing. This system that the 49ers want to run, if you've got really good players, it's a perfectly good system because it's simple. It lets them play fast, and it's just maximizes the talent that you have. That's great. Guess what? 49ers don't have those guys anymore. They don't. They've got Nick Bosa coming off his 3rd ACL tear. They've got Fred Warner coming off a major ankle injury, and they've got a couple of defensive linemen who've shown some promise, but they don't have any blue chip studs anymore. They don't have the horses for this. And I don't know why they don't see it, or if they just don't care, or if they think they're going to get them, but it's bad. And it's especially frustrating because when Kyle was asked, are you going to stick with the Seattle scheme? He said something that I liked, but that doesn't seem to match up with what they're doing. Listen to Kyle.
Defenses need a little bit of everything. Yeah, we have a 4 down front. That's what we like to do. But I thought it was important that we had 5 down fronts this year, and we did put that in. I think it's important that you do have a coverage that you can, you can really settle on and know this is what we do the best. But if you don't have 4 to 5 coverages that play off that, and it doesn't matter how good you are at that coverage. That's how this league works now. Offensive coaches know how to attack things too much, and so you have to up the variables on what they know they're going to get, and that starts with front change, it starts with coverage change, and it goes with personnel change. And I think we've done more of that each year, and we'll continue to have to do more of that.
That's great. I love the sound of that. Guess what? The last time Gus Bradley was a defensive coordinator with the Colts, he didn't run one simulated pressure the entire season. He's not varying coverages. He's not mixing it up for offenses. He's doing the same stuff every time. That's the complete opposite of what Kyle just described.
I mean, there are negatives to Kyle Shanahan as a coach, and the negatives are all when they're not on the field.
Yes, I love this comment. It sums it up perfectly. I love in-season Kyle, but I hate off-season Kyle. If it's Gus, and every indication points to yes, the Kyle must just be lazy when it comes to that, i.e. Sorensen, Saleh, and D'Amico falling into his lap.
He did touch on that in the press conference.
He said, I wish Saleh stuck around so I could go on vacation.
And that his family is mad at him for delaying vacation for the 5th year in a row to find a defensive coordinator.
Look, I'm not going to say that he's just doing this just so he could go on vacation, and God knows he's earned a vacation because, like I said,
hold on.
Last year,
if he doesn't get the vacation on time, he might miss out on a quarterback.
It all ties together. Time is a flat circle. I can't believe that this is how they're running there. What does it cost you to interview people? Learn about your players. What do other teams think of your players? What do other teams think of your defense? Like, my God, I don't understand how Kyle can do so many different things offensively and evolve his system, which he has done, and update his system to continue to be good, which it was good again last year. But then when it comes to defense, he's married to this stupid scheme from Seattle from a decade ago. Like, why wouldn't you apply all those philosophies you have on offense to the defense?
Yeah, I forget the exact quote, and actually I forget which NFL great said it, but something along the lines of, if you're staying the same in the NFL, you're going to get passed by and you're going to lose. You cannot remain the same. No, this is years ago. I remember that being a thing when I was a kid. That might have been a Madden thing.
No, Harbaugh had it painted on the facility when he was with the Niners coach. You either get better or you get worse. You never stay the same.
Right, and that's a play on. I can't remember. I think the quote was something like, "If you stay the same, then you're going to be stuck in the mud in the NFL and you'll get beat." Something along those lines. And it was somebody from, like, I want to say like 70s or 80s that said it, because I remember hearing it all the time as a kid, and then it just kind of faded away as a saying. But it's 100% true. The NFL changes, and it's the number one difference between the NFL and college football. In college football, the players change because they graduate and you don't get them long enough. In the NFL, the schemes change. You cannot keep the same scheme. In college, you can run virtually the same scheme year over year over year. And because the players are always changing every 4 years, or now it's stretching to 5-6 years, but you get my drift, that you can run the same system. And by the time somebody's figured it out, it's too late because they got new players that they got to teach how to beat it.
I just can't believe that that's where we're going. Well, Gus Bradley's here and he's nice and he tells stories, so we're sticking with him. And we're not going to look at bringing in a guy like Jim. Now, Jim Schwartz is technically still under contract with the Browns, but I'm sure he could get out. Like, there's things they can do. There's back channels they could work. There's things that they can do to interview people.
I don't think anybody wants that Browns job.
Well, would you? I mean, but like, no. Sean McDermott is out there. He's a defensive mind.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think the signature of this coaching cycle is it's the second run coaching cycle.
Right.
All the top candidates are guys going on their second chance, which means their last chance. So nobody wants that Cleveland job. It's too risky for your second chance. I don't think McDermott wants it. Obviously, McDaniels doesn't want it. I don't think Saleh wanted it. He canceled an interview with him when he got to accept the Tennessee job. But I think this is a year where you got so many coaches going for their second chance at head coach. I don't know what Cleveland's going to do. And if that's the case, then they should just give it to Schwartz.
Well, I'm sure he wants it. I'm sure he wants to be a head coach again. But Jim, that's not what you should do. You should come to San Francisco, team up with Kyle Shanahan, and beat the hell out of people. That's what you should do. Who knows if he's going to actually do it. Now, if you thought we were upset before, there's one more thing.
The one that we both agree is atrocious.
In this press conference that is going to really frustrate you. And I'm going to tell you what it is in a second. But first, want to say thank you again to Sleeper for hopping on board once again this season. We greatly appreciate it. You should go and check out Sleeper. It is what we use. We give picks every Friday. Go check it out. Download the app. Super easy to do. All you got to do is choose higher or lower on different stats. They got a million different stats. If you sign up, as you see on the screen, you'll get a free $20 entry, no deposit needed. So go and have a little fun. And then if you check it out and you like it, which you will because it's awesome, deposit some money and use our code GSP, and you'll get up to a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. It is that simple. Go and do it. I promise you, you will love the app. It has news on there. It has picks. They have fantasy games for all the different sports. There is something on there that you will like. I promise you. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. Now, let's get to the final thing, Levin. The thing that made you and me. Usually it's just me, but this time you were ripping your hair out as well. Kyle was asked about Nick Martin and Jordan Watkins not being able to get on the field. And I believe it was Larry Kruger that asked the question. Thank you, Larry, for asking it, because I think it's a question that needed to be asked. And Kyle gave a very long answer. And here's what he talked about with Jordan Watkins specifically as to why he couldn't get on the field.
Right away in training camp, you miss a whole training camp. It's a huge window for guys who aren't quite ready yet. That was their chance to get ready. And then when you come back, where are you when you come back? If it's off a high ankle sprain, how's your conditioning now? All right, well, now it takes you 3 weeks just to get your conditioning back to where you can start to have a chance to improve. And when that happens, you have a setback, which he did. And so you kind of miss that window where you had a chance to gain on people. And then where are you sitting in week 12, week 13, behind a group of guys that are more consistent at this time in their career than you are. And then it becomes unfortunate for those guys. You know, you have a losing season, you're totally out of stuff, and you just want to give guys chances, and that's all right. But when you're trying to compete for a 1 seed, trying to compete for just to get in the playoffs, you don't experiment with that at the expense of the football team. And that's kind of what both of those guys got in. I think Nick was working his way to have an opportunity with some injuries, and that was going to give him a chance. And right when that happened, he got a real bad concussion that lasted a long time. And so that kind of ended it for him. If there were a couple more injuries for these receivers in the last month or so, then Jordan would have been up. It wasn't that he wasn't capable. It's that he missed his window to pass some people. And I think that can end up being a good thing for a guy if they understand why it happens. And they use that from January to March to understand how to come into an off season to make sure you get ready right away. Because you never know when that time's taken away where you can't get ready.
Is so much there that doesn't make any sense. You go first because I got to organize my thoughts.
I mean, the follow-up, which I'm sure there wasn't allowed to be, but the follow-up was, you said consistency, but with all due respect, you had a veteran who still didn't know how to line up wrong once a game playing. Where is the consistency from a veteran who can't even line up correctly? Why would you not give it a chance? There's also another follow-up. You had a whole bunch of guys that couldn't produce. They could not separate. That was a big problem against Seattle. That's not consistency, unless consistency you're meaning is just straight consistency. And even if it's crap consistency, it's consistency. So why wouldn't you take a chance? You said you didn't want to experiment because that's not fair. If the results are shit, experiment because you got nothing to lose. There was no reason for some of the guys to be playing when they had some injuries down the stretch. Kendrick Bourne, I can see some iota. There's at least some small argument to be had because he did produce when he was the only guy left. But you were putting in guys that it had been 5 years since they had an NFL catch. What the freak are you doing? What are you talking about consistency? The guy's so consistent that he didn't make a catch in the NFL for 4 years. That's not the type of consistency that you stick by.
Not only that, and I agree, and I want to talk about that more, but also you get hurt in training camp, so you missed your window to pass guys out. What the hell is that? That's it. If you get hurt in training camp or you have a bad camp, that's it. You can't play the rest of the year, no matter what happens, no matter how bad.
If you're a rookie who misses training camp, go on IR now because it's over.
You're redshirting. That's insanity. Kyle, how does that make sense? Also, how was Jordan James or Jordan Watkins or anybody supposed to get consistent if you never give them a chance? He wants these guys to be like NFL ready before they ever step on a field for the first time. It's like, my God, none of that makes any sense. None of it makes any sense. Oh, Kendrick Bourne is more consistent. No, he's not consistently bad. Like, what? How are your draft picks supposed to help you if this is your attitude with them? Like, you know how much harder you make it for your draft class to have an impact? And you know how much you slow the development of those players by not playing them? How are they supposed to develop getting a handful of reps in practice? That's not how you develop. I talked about it with Trey Lance over and over again. You don't learn how to drive a car in driver's ed. You learn how to drive a car by getting behind the wheel and getting out on the road. Kyle wants these guys to have a license before they even get in the car.
It's crazy. And you can see the difference and know that this is 100% Kyle by how the defense is treated. Because on defense, they will play young guys. And you've seen multiple defensive coordinators talk in post-game press conferences that, yeah, he made a mistake, but he's young, he's learning. You know, that's how he learns to not make that mistake again. We've seen Salah say that at different times about players. We saw that even Wilkes was saying stuff like that. They would give young players chances on defense. If Alfred Collins was on offense, he would not have seen the field.
Right.
Because he wasn't consistent in the beginning. He would have a couple of flash plays a game, but he would have a lot of bad plays too. But he played through it and he learned by playing. It doesn't make any sense. You cannot learn to be great in the NFL without playing. You're not going to learn it in practice. Practice does not make you great.
Especially if you're not a first round pick, right? Like some dudes, Bosa came into the NFL and he was ready. He was ready to start from day one. Not everybody's like that, especially in round 2, 3, 4. You got to get in there. Look at Upton Stout. Upton Stout was such a better player at the end of the year than he was at the beginning of the year. Not because he got reps in practice, or not just because he got reps in practice, I should say, because he also got real live reps in a live NFL game against a real defense that was scheming at him a lot of the time and picking on him a lot of the time, quite frankly, and he learned and got better from it. So Jordan Watkins can't get hurt because he got a high ankle sprain in training camp. And then it took him 3 weeks to get his conditioning back. And by the way, why the hell is it taking 3 weeks to get conditioning back? Let's talk about the training staff for that one. It takes an NFL player 3 weeks to get his conditioning back.
What conditioning is needed if you're going to give him 5 snaps in a game?
Right. That's the thing. You don't need to give him a full workload right away. You can ease him in.
It's bullshit when he says that, because when he's talking about a starter, he says, well, we might have to do a little bit of a snap count, or we're going to have to ease him back into getting snaps in the game because he's coming back and still getting in game shape. Oh, so they can play before they're in game shape. But the rookie who may only get 5 to 10 snaps, suddenly he's not playing unless he can play through a full 50 or 60 snaps, even though you're not going to play him like that. It just doesn't make sense. He's got to be in game shape. You're not going to play him 50, 60 snaps. He's not a starter. What are you talking about?
None of it makes any sense. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then when you compound that, he was asked later in the press conference, could Jordan James be, a running back, a legit backup for Christian McCaffrey? And Kyle's answer, quote, I'm real excited about Jordan James. Wish we could have gotten him in there more. He was ready to go here these last 6 weeks of the year, big time. There wasn't an opportunity for him, but if he has an offseason that we think he's capable of and can improve, especially the way he looked here at the end of the year, I feel very excited about him helping us. Why is Kyle Shanahan talking as if somebody else decided not to put Jordan James in the game? He's acting like it just happened, like he had no control over it. Like, Kyle, you're the one that decides that. What do you mean you wish you could have got him in there more? Then put him in. Put him in. Why are you handing the ball to Brian Robinson? Because Brian Robinson's a veteran, the slowest running back on the friggin' planet? Like,
why are you giving 450 touches to the all-star but aging running back if you have a guy that you want to see what he can do because he's looking so good in practice?
Right.
You don't have to give the starting running back 20 carries every single game. Like, he doesn't have to get 90+% of the carries, is a better way to put it, every single game. Like, it's like the meme, what are you talking about? And just can't, in complete disbelief, because it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not making sense. You're saying one thing, but the reality of what you've done proves that what you're saying is complete and utter bullshit.
I like this. Mr. X says, I understand what he meant on Watkins. He was causing interceptions during the preseason.
Guess who leads the NFL on interceptions when targeted? Juwan Jennings.
Juwan Jennings.
God, Juwan Jennings literally leads, and that's not just this year. That's over the last 2 years. The last 2 years, there are more interceptions thrown with Jennings as a target than any other player in the NFL. So I don't want to hear that one.
It's insanity. And now
I didn't like their answer on Jennings, by the way. Jennings sounded like he's gone when he talked on Monday.
Yeah.
The 49ers talked about how they would want him back. And it's like, no, it's time to rip off the Band-Aid. I liked Jennings as a player, but the time has come. And I said this years ago. With his speed situation, he's not somebody I want to be paying whatsoever when he turns 30. Well, his next contract's going to take him through the age of 30 and into his 30s. He is going to be one of those guys that the moment he loses even a quarter of a step, he's suddenly not playable.
So here's what they said about, he went on about how Juwan is so passionate and he makes us better. He said, we'd love to have him back. We'll go to work to try to get that accomplished, and we'll see where that goes. That to me is just, that's a non-answer. Like, they're not, they would have, if they were going to bring him back, they would have done it already. They didn't, they knew what he wanted and they chose not to give it to him. And I believe they chose correctly, by the way, not to give it to him. And so I don't think they actually are going to try that hard. Maybe they say, go out on the market, and then if he doesn't sign right away, maybe they throw him like, a low ball offer and see. But I don't think there's any realistic chance, because I think he's going to sign with somebody. I mean, he had 9 touchdowns this year. He had a solid season.
I don't think he's getting 20 million, but I could see somebody giving him, 10 to 15 million. But I wouldn't want him back for 5 million, just because I think you have to move on. You've got to get others in there, because is he good enough of a receiver that you would probably play him over rookies? Yeah. And I don't want that. You need to develop. You don't need to keep running back somebody who can't separate.
He's an NFL player. Absolutely. There's a role for him somewhere on some team. No question about it. It just can't be this team anymore. It can't, especially for what he's going to cost. I'm sorry. It cannot be. You cannot draft wide receivers every year like the 49ers do and then just keep throwing the ball to Juwan Jennings. It makes no sense. Poor allocation of resources, and they should not do it. Oh, man. The whole presser just irritated me so much. I
was going to say, if you want irritation, I'll see if I can irritate you, because I still got some hot takes left.
I know. There's a couple other things I want to mention, though. They were asked about Mac Jones. Kyle said he'd be real surprised if Mac Jones wasn't on the team next year. Just keep in mind, they said the exact same thing about Deebo Samuel. And
yeah, it was the only newsworthy thing that could possibly come from that was if he said, yeah, Mac Jones deserves to be a starter and he'll be starting somewhere next year. Anything else, you can't trust.
Right, exactly, because he doesn't want to. They're going to give the impression that they want to keep him. Oh, he's a good player. We're not in the habit of getting rid of good. That's what they say about everybody. So don't think that, oh, Mac Jones is definitely going to be back next year. I would not say that at all.
Yeah, regardless of what the ESPN headline says.
Right. Okay, a couple other things I wrote down. Jake Tonges has plantar fasciitis. He's dealing with that for the next 3 weeks. Not that it matters at this point. Nick Martin, they weren't totally sure, but they think may have just cleared concussion protocol today, which is super scary because he got hurt weeks ago. So that is a terrifying thing. I really hope Nick Martin is okay. That is obviously something you need to be abundantly cautious about. And luckily he doesn't have to play, till next year, which is good, but that is a scary situation. Kyle did admit they need more speed on the team. He's literally said definitely was his words. We all agree there. Let's see. Alfred Collins may have to have shoulder surgery. Ugh, that sucks. Yeah. Nick Bosa and Michael Williams will hopefully be back by training camp, which is pretty good timeline. I mean, Bosa was a little earlier than Michael, but nonetheless, that's a good sign for them. Now, maybe they're not fully ready to go. I have said, Levin, I want that Giants game to be week 1, and I want Michael and Bosa to skip it. Get it out of the way early. Get it out of the way when the Niners are seemingly most likely at their healthiest. First game of the year, when people are most able to withstand that demon turf they have in that stadium. First game, get it out of the way. Then Bosa and Michael can come back. Fred can miss week 1. I'm fine with that too. Let everybody come back after that, and then we can have the other 16 games of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I do hope, and they've already come out and said that they're not going to, but there's time for that to still change, that they say, you know what, we are going to keep it. Because you know what MetLife is doing in June and July?
The World Cup?
A natural grass, because that is FIFA requirement.
Yeah.
They are growing and have a natural grass for soccer. Now, the Giants came out. It was early in the season when that was found out, and said no, it will be going back to turf after. It will not remain. But I wonder if maybe once they have it there and it's already there, that they say, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and keep this.
It's just the cost to maintain it. It's just
Yeah.
a billionaire
It's
owner
literally-
being cheap. That's all it is. They
Yeah.
could easily do it. We figured out. We know how to grow grass. It's not difficult. It just costs more money to maintain, which I do give Jed York credit for that, because their field stunk at Levi's, and then he paid a lot of money to fix it, and now it's one of the best. And that is to Jed York's credit. All right.
Yep.
Let's get to it.
Levin's hot takes.
All right, sir. What have you got for us today?
Kind of a wet blanket prediction, sort of, kind of.
Oh, where's a shot?
49er fans are in for a very boring draft.
Why do you say that?
Well, we just talked about how Kyle doesn't like rookie wide receivers. I think the Niners are trading their first and second round pick for a wide receiver. And I'll give you reasons why. They're going to go out and get a bona fide great wide receiver. Justin Jefferson's obviously the name right now, but there could be others that come available. But looking at previous wide receivers in that class of wide receiver and what it cost to get them. Tyreek Hill, that's the worst of the trades, the most cost. It was a first, second, and fourth, then a fourth and sixth the following year. But A.J. Brown was a first and third. Now, A.J. Brown did not have quite as big of years as Justin Jefferson has had. And the thing with all these other players that you're going to see that is not the case with Justin Jefferson is the team acquiring them had to immediately pay a massive signing bonus with a new contract. If you get Justin Jefferson, there is no new contract because he's already going to be well compensated, and he just got a signing bonus this last offseason. So I think that adds a little bit to the cost of getting Justin Jefferson. I think it will be a first, second minimum and I think the Niners are going to go out and they're going to spend at least their first and third. Wouldn't be surprised if it's first, second plus to get Jefferson, but they're going to go out and get a true number one receiver to eliminate this, because how they need everything other than Pearsall. How can they go out and say, yeah, we're going to draft one wide receiver in the first or second and we're good? And at the same time, the free agents, there's guys there that are good, but there's no like star receiver there this offseason.
First of all, I'm changing your hot take to make it spicier. So I'm going to give it 3 peppers, but only due to my hard work. Because you said the hot take was they're going to have a boring draft. You should have said they're going to trade for a superstar wide receiver. And I would give you the 3 peppers. So I'm changing it. But I agree. I think they are going to make a trade for a wide receiver, which is another reason why, Levin, they have to trade Mac Jones. Because the only way to get this receiver is to pay up with draft picks. They need players, so they got to trade Mac to get more draft picks.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like what's going to happen is they're going to trade the first and second and maybe some fluff later round picks, or maybe even next year, the following year picks, 2027 picks, to get the star receiver, but then recoup a second with Mac Jones or a third and a fourth with Mac Jones. So then they still get some draft capital. I don't want to see another draft where the Niners' first pick is in the third round, but I also wouldn't be surprised if that's the case.
I am stunned that there are people out there that think Jason Aponte said it this week. He doesn't think they can get a second round pick for Mac Jones. I'm
not sure they can. I think it's very borderline.
Sam Darnold got traded to the Carolina Panthers from the Jets, where he was awful with the Jets, right? We all agree. The Jets got a 2021 6th round pick, a 2022 second round pick, and a 2022 4th round pick for Sam Darnold. They got 3 picks, including a second rounder, and he was awful with the Jets. But the 49ers can't get a second round pick for Mac Jones?
There's a weird thing in the NFL that if you have a highly touted quarterback who's still on his rookie deal, even if it's the final year of it, for some reason they still have great value. Whereas that a similarly highly touted quarterback who's no longer on his rookie deal, but is on a second deal that's not worth much, doesn't have near the trade value. There have been cases where quarterbacks are traded for next to nothing. Look at Baker Mayfield was traded for next to nothing. There are more cases than not. For some reason, like a quarterback who is drafted in the top 10 and is in his fourth year, or going into his fourth year, you can still get a second round pick for it half the time. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but that is the historical precedent that's been set.
I think they're going to get a second round pick from Mac Jones. I think D'Amico Ryans is like, damn, if we had Mac Jones, we would have won that playoff game. I think Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota is like, if we had Mac Jones instead of this bum JJ McCarthy, we would be in the playoffs. We'd have we can do some things with my offense. There's people.
Would you do this trade? The first and third with Mac Jones for Justin Jefferson. So you're essentially making Mac Jones a second round pick there. Instead of having to give up the second, you're giving up Mac Jones.
Probably.
I would.
I've seen Kyle Cook with his number 1 stud wide receiver. And then if you're able to move Pearsall to number 2, and you have DeMarcus Robinson 3, or Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, if they actually still exist, okay, I could see that. But they do need players from the draft. Like, they need cheap rookies too. So
they were the third oldest roster in the NFL. So I don't think this is a case where they can do the Tyreek Hill trade where they traded first, second, and fourth in this year's draft.
Yeah. But Justin Jefferson is young. He's only 26. So it's not like you're trading for, an older guy. All right.
Well, Tyreek Hill was 27. I went and looked. He was 27 when he was traded. A.J. Brown was, I think, 26. And Devontae Adams was 28, almost 29 when he got traded for a first and second to the Raiders.
Interesting. All right. What's your other hot takes?
All right. I got the 49ers should reset the center market. They should pay $20 million a year to Tyler Linderbaum. He's 26, one of the top centers in the league, and I think you're going to have to pay to get him away from one of two teams. The Ravens, where he is, and I think John Harbaugh, who's now with the Giants and has a lot of cap space, is going to go hard for him. So pay him $20 million. The current highest AAV is $18 million. So you're resetting it by $2 million. You got to go get him. I think if you upgrade the center, you don't need much more with the offensive line, because I think at that point you can say, all right, we have 4 of the 5 spots. The 5th spot, which will be left guard, is going to get helped by having Trent Williams and a really good center next to him. We will use a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick on a guard that we think has a chance to be there. If he can't be, there's Connor Colby, and we'll sign some veteran who's old, has starting experience, but isn't expected to be a starter, and will come for $2 to $3 million, and have those 3 battle it out. I think if you do that, you have the making for the best offensive line in the league.
Why wouldn't the Ravens sign him and or franchise him?
Well, they turned down his 5th-year option. That's why he's a free agent. He's a former first-round pick. So they declined his 5th-year option was going to be, I think, like $23 million, and they turned it down. So clearly, $23 million is too much for him. If you get $21 million, you might be hitting the point where they don't want to pay it.
I agree with you. I don't think this is a spicy take, because I agree. So I'm only going to give it 1 pepper. It is never going to happen. They are riding with Jake Brendel until the wheels fall off.
Jake Brendel has 1 year left on his deal.
They're going to ride that out.
Yeah.
But
I got one more.
Okay.
And you might agree with this one, but I don't think a lot of people have looked at this as being a possibility. I think they need a pass rusher. A true pass rusher, even though Michael and Bosa are trending towards maybe being back training camp or early in the season. I would go sign a former defensive player of the year. Khalil Mack is set to be a free agent, and I think he's willing to take a part-time, because he only played the last 2 years. He's only played 59% of the snaps and 60% of the snaps. If you play him on 2nd and longs and 3rd downs, he's going to get around that many snaps. And I would like to see him play 3rd down on the outside, Bosa on the other outside, and you move Mike to the inside on those situations. I think if they do that, you suddenly fixed the defensive line, and you will have a defensive line that can get pressure by itself. Because I think Khalil Mack, he is not what he once was. but as a pass rusher only, especially in a more limited role, he is still up there with some of the best.
So Mac has said that he's going to decide how he's feeling. He doesn't know if he's going to play for sure next year.
Yeah.
So that is an obstacle. Also, isn't that what Bryce Huff is supposed to be?
Yeah, but he's not good enough.
I think he is.
I don't think he is.
They were able to use him the way that he was meant to be used, which is what we saw early in the
Bryce
year.
Huff has nothing compared to Mac. Mac, he has a bull rush and he has the speed. Bryce Huff is, I'm going to try to run by you. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, I'm going to try to run by you again. Watch out. Like, he's like a 5-year-old, playing tag with. All they do is try to speed. There's no zigzag. There's nothing to it. Is he a bad pass rusher? No, but he is a one-trick pony. Mac has a full arsenal of stuff. That's why he was dominant.
Mac had 5.5 sacks last year. Bryce Huff had 4 sacks this year. I think Bryce Huff would be perfectly fine in that role. The problem was he could only be used in that role. Once Bosa went down, and then he had to come in and basically be their full-time starting defensive end. He's not good at that. His one job is a speed rush from the outside. He was supposed to come from the opposite side of Nick Bosa. Michael Williams was supposed to be on the inside. And I think it would have worked exactly the way they thought it was going to work. We saw it early in the year. It worked that way against New Orleans. They closed the game out. Why? Because Bryce Huff got around the edge so damn fast, he forced Spencer Rattler to fumble because Spencer Rattler was like, holy crap, what the hell is that? But, if you have a defense that can only function one way, if nobody ever gets hurt, that's sort of not exactly a recipe for success. I wouldn't be against it because you can never have too many good pass rushers. Have them both. There's no rule on that either.
He wouldn't be cheap, and that's why I think it's a little more of a spicy take because he got a 1-year, $18 million deal this past year. I think, obviously he wasn't quite as good, and he's clearly declining. He's about to be, I think, 35 next year. But I think I think the deal I wrote down on my notepad was a 2-year, $25 million deal with $15 million guaranteed, with the $15 million coming in year one. So you're essentially getting a 1-year, $15 million deal, and then if he still wants to play and the team still wants him, it's an unguaranteed second year on the deal of $10 million.
Well, they should try. I can get on board with that. All he's going to cost you is money. So I'm on board. So that's fine. I would love to have them all. Imagine a defensive line with Michael Williams and Nick Bosa and Alfred Collins and CJ West and Bryce Huff and Khalil Mack. Yeah. How about we do that next year? That sounds pretty damn good.
I don't want them to go into this offseason saying, yeah, the pass rush sucked, but that's because of injuries. We'll be healthier next year. They have got to get another pass rusher. They cannot go into next season thinking, well, with better health, we wouldn't have been that bad. They had 20 sacks. This is the point that I keep coming to in my brain. They had 20 sacks this season. If Nick Bosa was healthy the whole rest of the year, say he adds 10 sacks. If Michael Williams was healthy the whole rest of the year, say he adds 10 sacks too. The equivalent, because maybe, he helps somebody else get 1 or 2 or whatever. You're adding 20 sacks to that. 40 sacks is middle of the league. It's still not good enough.
Right. Even if you're saying, well, it was all due to injuries. Great. Add them in. Add them to the let's just pretend everybody was healthy and add those numbers together. It's still not enough. You're still wanting there. But Lynch's answer when he talked about it today was, well, Nick Bosa is a force multiplier, and so he helps other people get sacks, which is true. But it's no excuse not to do more. You should always be doing more. But the 49ers aren't doing more. They're doing less. They're not trying to investigate anything with injuries. They're not trying to change anything. They're not going to change the training staff. They're not going to do any of that. They're just going to hope. Hope is their strategy, Levin.
Yeah.
And what do we say on this show? Hope is not a strategy.
I mean, right now it's my strategy to getting the wide receiver position fixed. I hope they trade for somebody. It's probably what led to the hot take of it.
John Lynch also said, I should point out, in the interest of fairness, he said he did think they would have some more financial flexibility this season. So maybe they are willing to at least spend a little more than they did last year. That is a good thing. You can't really spend less than they did last year, to be honest. But nonetheless, spending more is always better than spending less. But they got to do better with where they spend their money. Like, of the free agent acquisitions they've brought in, most of them haven't worked out. Charvarius Ward was a home run, massive home run. couldn't have been better. Like, love the guy. His last year was horrible for many reasons, most of those off the field. Forget that. He was a stud when he was here. Luke Farrell, complete disaster. Now I can't think of his name. The nickelback they signed when Wilkes was a defensive coordinator.
Yeah, they weren't high-priced people, though.
Yeah, but they were their big acquisitions. Those were like
they have reset the market twice with a free agent for their position, and both times it blew up in their face. I'm actually forgetting the linebacker that they did it with early in the original. Yeah, Quan Alexander. They paid him more than any other linebacker had ever been paid, coming off a major injury, and he was never healthy.
Yeah, that was bad. The Weston Richburg, they paid him a lot of money. He was playing well. He got hurt. But at least the guy that they paid money to was actually performing up to the contract.
They reset the center market when they signed him. He's the other one that they reset the market for the position in free agency and didn't get much for it.
Luke Farrell, complete disaster. Isaiah Oliver was his name. That was popped back into my head. He was a complete disaster, even though they said, this is the best nickel cornerback on the market. Like, no. Do better in free agency. Do better in the draft. They got a lot of work to do. And it doesn't sound, not a promising start. I will say that. Doesn't mean they can't have a great offseason, but I did not like what I heard today. And I hope that it gets better from here because this one was a frustrating one for me. This was not what I wanted to hear coming off a season where you could clearly see the cracks in the roster. And somebody pointed out, I think there was a super chat. I want to make sure I got to it. Yes, I'm sorry, Batman 29. I should have got to this earlier. Said
I didn't see this come through.
Seattle and the Rams both won a Super Bowl post 2010 and rebuilt their teams and now are on the verge of a second Lombardi. Meanwhile, the Niners haven't won one since 1995. Thoughts? I mean, one of those teams is going to the Super Bowl this year. One of these teams is going to the Super Bowl. And let's be honest, Seattle looks pretty strong right now. They look like they're in the driver's seat. That is an indictment of the process in San Francisco. And that's what this whole show has been about, at least from my perspective, the frustration with the process. And if you're not going to change the process, you're not going to change the result.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that they have, I think both those teams have a better GM. I think John Lynch he's good. He's just not great. I do also question how much of his issues that we think are his issues are Kyle Shanahan issues. Because I think Kyle Shanahan, when it comes to front office decisions, is abysmal. I think that's become abundantly clear. The guy can't draft. The guy can't evaluate talent until it's on the field, on the team.
I think that Kyle... Oh, sorry. I didn't mean...
I was going to say, I did want to ask you, though, on this. Have you figured out who you would rather see amongst these two teams win?
Oh, in the NFC, I would rather see McVay win.
I've struggled back and forth, but it came down to this, and I actually didn't think about this until I was researching my wide receiver hot take. I was like, you know what? I would like to see Davante Adams get one.
Remember Davante Adams?
There's no like aging vet on the Seahawks that I'm like, it would be good if he got one. There's no other aging vet I would say on the Rams. I don't particularly want to see Puka ever again. Even in the post-game press conference, him crashing it, I was like, go away. You have gone from like somebody that I didn't really have a strong opinion of to go F yourself type. Like he rubs me the wrong way every time I see him. But Davante Adams is the one person in this game that doesn't have a title that I wouldn't mind seeing get a title. Now, I would much rather the Broncos figure out a way to win. But this is by far the least excited and the least amount I have cared for a conference championship weekend in the history of the NFL, because it has probably the three teams, or I would say 3 out of the 4 teams I would least want to see in it. The Seahawks and Rams are obviously, but then in the AFC, the only 2 teams I would care to I don't want to see them win are the Chiefs and the Patriots. I don't want to see the Patriots once again be on top of the mountain.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but I don't want the Broncos to win because they have no shot to beat the Seahawks and the Rams without Bo Nix. So I got to root for the Patriots and then root for the Patriots again in the Super Bowl. Oh, God. Frustrating. A long off season to go. long offseason to go. It starts with defensive coordinator. Kyle Shanahan said he expects to take care of that next week, which just means they need to get the Rooney Rule interviews out of the way so they can hire Gus Bradley. But
well, it also tells you that there has been some rumor of, God, I forget his name. He is a Rams assistant that some have thought maybe gets a defensive coordinator position this offseason. He's not on the radar because they can't get him. If they're going to solve this in the next week, it is people who are currently available from teams not in the playoffs.
We know who it's going to be because it's always been the internal guy, the easy choice, the comfort over competence. Again, like Dieter Kurtenbach said, I thought that was the perfect way to put it. And we'll see. And look, if they did what you talked about, right? If they get Huff back and Bosa and they sign Khalil Mack, then maybe you can run that bum ass system with Gus Bradley where it's just cover 3 every time and let your horses, like if you've got enough guys, that can work, but you got to get the guys. You got to have one or the other, the scheme or the horses. Which one do you want?
You want a bonus hot take? Just came to me.
No.
Epiphany. No, this is a good one, actually. You might like this one. We all talk about how Kyle Shanahan helps a defensive coordinator because, he sits in the defense meetings. Maybe the real genius in regards to that is Sean McVay. Because what happened to Brandon Staley after he left? Sucked. Raheem Morris, he's left and he can't be a good head coach. Now, I think he's a good coordinator, but McVay has had multiple first-time coordinators come in and look great, and when they leave, they're not great. Now, Morris is not one of them. He had been a defensive coordinator previously before joining McVay, if I'm not mistaken, but their current defensive coordinator is getting head coach consideration, and he's a first-time coordinator. Like, maybe McVay is the guy who's actually great at helping out a defensive coordinator.
Or maybe they're both great. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, see, I've come to doubt that because of how terrible Sorensen was, how much Wilkes struggled. Like, is Shanahan actually a net benefit to the coordinator, the defensive side? I don't know that he is.
I don't think Wilkes struggled. They were 3rd in points allowed in the NFL that year. Like, Kyle didn't like him, but they were miles ahead of the defense they had in 2024 and 2025.
And in the big moments, he ran the dumbest freaking type of defense, and it cost them multiple games.
2 things can be true. Like, their defense that year was so much better than the defenses we've seen recently. They were third or 4th. I can't remember which one it was, but like, that's really good. Would you take that next year? Yes, I would.
Yeah, but they stayed relatively healthy, but like I said, look, it's like a quarterback who is terrible with the game on the line. I don't care how good he is prior to that. If he craps the bed every time the chips are on the line, I don't want him as the quarterback. And that was Wilkes as a defensive coordinator.
They were 3rd, 17.5 points per game that year. Best in the NFC. I'm just saying, I don't think he struggled. I wouldn't call that. How is that struggling? You could say
you got to take the players that he had into consideration and that he actually had health with those players.
Yeah, but also he did really good with them. Like 17.3 points a game. The NFL leader was the Ravens at 16.5. So the Ravens were 1 point better per game than the 49ers. And they were the best defense in the league that year.
I did not envision you becoming a Wilkes hindsight apologist because at the time we all hated him.
Oh, I'm just saying he didn't struggle. And I defended him because I thought they gave him a raw deal. They blamed him for everything.
Well, I do think he got too much of the blame, but he was certainly to blame, and it was definitely needing to move on.
They made him stand up and apologize after the Vikings game because he called an all blitz before zero blitz before halftime. Like, I've never seen anybody I've never seen Kyle Shanahan stand up and apologize for a play call before. And we know he's made some bad ones. He should have apologized after that stupid option on 4th down.
No. It's just execution when it happens on offense.
That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're not always this mad, I promise. It's just frustrating for the first press conference of the offseason.
I kind of am, but...
Oh, yeah, that's true. If you are not watching this live, please hype this video. You got to swipe, I think, right on your phone. It's next to the share button, I believe. You got to swipe. There's a hype button. If you push it, it really, really helps us. It's like even better than the like. So if you want to do what you can, it's totally free. Doesn't cost you anything. Just swipe and push the hype button. We would greatly appreciate it. Shout out to all our YouTube channel members. We appreciate each and every one of you. I just updated the membership. So there's now even more custom emojis for you. I made some new ones. There's a new Trent. There's a new Juice. There's a new Brock, I believe. There's a Ricky Pearsall one that I added.
Is there a spicy pepper one?
No, but you know what? I can add that. I will add that. There's a Pearsall. Oh, I said Pearsall already. There's a Warner was the other one that I made. Also, we're going to add a new membership tier. We're going to add a third membership tier. If you want to sign up for that, it's going to be $8.99 a month. You're going to get everything from the first two, plus a monthly Zoom call with me and possibly some other members of the Gold Standard team if they are interested. But that is another tier you could sign up for. I believe it's called the Inner Circle, the Gold Circle or something. There's a circle involved. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, just want to say
that's a raw deal. You pay me to do a weekly Zoom call with you.
Thanks. Way to help me sell it, Levin. Thank you. But thank you, everybody. Enjoy this video. We'll be back tomorrow, and go damn Niners.